Dominique Side is known by Dom in the music world, and she is a Houston-based singer-songwriter and with a fierce musical voice, a fashionista who sets the trends, and the owner of her own record label. Dominique has built a boutique vegan grocery store, a clothing line, and operates an eco-friendly studio and media complex for the Vgn Bae Music Group, which is home to several gospel artists and other performers. Dominique's EP titled IRL was released last year and showcased an incredible range, mixing pop and R&B with an urban edge, and fans can expect her to continue producing music that is entertaining and empowering. Spreading a message of compassion-based thinking and decision-making, she is redefining the image for vegans everywhere. So ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome a singer-songwriter, fashion trend center, and co-owner of the Vgn Bae Music Group, the beautiful Dominique Side, to the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
Well, I know that you are from the mighty city of Houston. So are you born and raised in Houston?
I would say I was raised here because we moved here when I was like 7 or 8 years old, but I was born in Biloxi, Mississippi.
Hey, there you go. That's a beautiful Gulf Coast town, and I know many of my viewers have been to Biloxi. I have been through and been there many times myself. But for
Mhm.
you, can you tell us a little more about your journey in music to this point?
For sure. So, I mean, I started singing young, as most people in this space, did. My mom was like, "Oh, wow, you sing great. So I'm just going to put you in every program that I hear about, and you can sing everywhere that I know about, and, sing in church and, wherever else I was welcome, showcases or anything like that." But for a long time, it wasn't ever considered like a viable career choice. It was just kind of like, this is something you can do, that you're talented in, but you wouldn't make your living that way. So what do you want to do with your life, Dominique? But when I got to college, I started singing in a gospel choir there. I went to Oral Roberts University for about 2 years, and in Tulsa, Oklahoma. If nobody's familiar.
Oh yeah.
And then I came home because I was a bit homesick. And when I came home, I started singing like with an R&B group. I did that for a little bit, and I was like, I went and joined a church on the south side of Houston, and they had a new music director. And he's like, do you want to sing with us? We have a group. And he's well known in the gospel community, James Fortune and Faya. So I joined Faya and I recorded and traveled with them for a few years. But my kids were young and put a strain like on my family life. So I stepped away from music for like 10 years.
Wow. Well,
And so,
what did you major in at ORU? Was it communication based or music based?
you know what? I actually started pre med.
Wow. How did you go from pre-med into what you're doing now? My goodness.
Oh man. I mean, like I said, my family told me I had to choose something that was a viable career choice, and I'm intelligent. And to them it was like, okay, so you're going to be a doctor or an attorney or, something like that, engineer, something. And I said, okay. Well, my mom was in the healthcare space as a kinesiotherapist, and she worked with veterans at the VA hospital. She's a veteran herself, and she worked at the VA hospital. I spent a lot of time there volunteering, and so I said I want to be a neurosurgeon. I don't know. So that's what I was studying for. I was studying to be a doctor. That was what I was studying for. But then I don't know. I decided college, it just did not agree with me. I wasn't focused, disciplined. I had done so well in school up until that point without much discipline that it was a completely different world. Like the level of accountability, I wasn't even used to having that for myself. So I was like, okay, this isn't for me right now. But I was really into the music. And I said, oh, how can I still do that? So I went home and got a corporate job and spent a lot of time in the studio and a lot of time singing, writing, just, honing my gifts. And um, Then
I, I find it funny, especially with parents, that anytime the child is interested in music but starts leaning towards like, hey, I want to have a music career, the
Mhm.
parents are more like, and I know it pulls them out of their comfort zone because they want the best for the child, but it's like, get a real job because you're never going
Yes.
to make money doing music. And I have seen, both sides of this coin from interviewing many recording artists. So I always find it kind of humorous, especially when the artist actually makes it. And it
Yeah.
probably brings a little bit more peace to the parents that, oh, my kid actually made it and they're actually taking care of themselves. Is that kind of what happens with yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Mine is, I guess my story is a little different in that I went the corporate route and said, okay, well, I have, children and a family and people to support. So let me, get these jobs, so I had corporate jobs and learned a lot from each position that I held and people that I worked with. And I took that into an entrepreneurial space. So, I started my first company, then my second, and then my third. And by then it was like my now business partner, we were having a meeting, and this was before Vgn Bae was ever a thing. And he said, "What do you really want to do?" And I said, "I want to get back to music." And he had been in music before as well, and he said, well, let's build a studio. And as crazy as that sounded, I just said okay. It just flew out of my mouth. I didn't even question it. And in my mind I'm going, what in the world did you just agree to?
And that is a strange road because most people would just go pick a studio to go into and start
Mhm.
recording, paying as
Yeah.
they're going along, and either making demos or EPs, getting out them through the digital platforms that are available. But to think, hey, we're just going to go build a studio and we're going to do this ourselves. That takes a lot of guts, a
we had
huge step of faith.
There was a lot of open space in the building where my office is, but at the time it was just, I was here. I'm the co-founder of a small private school. The school was here. And then I used what used to be a bookstore as the space for the vegan grocery store. So that was here. So there were three things here. There were no other rooms taken up on the side of the buildings that we were on. And there was one tenant on the very far end, and so he's like, let's build a studio. And so we picked a room that's down the hall from my office, and we started designing this space and building it out, because the whole premise was we can build a space that we can use as much as we want to do whatever we want, do music on our own terms, but we can also rent it out so that it can pay for itself. So I was like, well, that sounds like a great, business model and investment. And I'm investing in myself, and it's something for the community. And why not?
See, you're one of the people that you are a perfect example. You can even be a perfect mentor to other musicians because one of the biggest things that I've learned over the years, interviewing and talking to so many people in the recording industry, musicians are the absolute worst at business.
Yes.
They get taken advantage of. They don't know how to read a contract. Uh, they don't save their money. They don't
No.
save part of what they earn, and they're always trying to find how can I make the next dollar to continue my dream. But they
Yeah.
don't understand of putting things in the right perspective. And you nailed it.
Yes. And we encountered that a lot in the beginning when we opened the studio officially January 2020. And as most people know, the quarantine was in March 2020,
Yeah.
pandemic, everything shut down. And so we had to pivot, and we pivoted into virtual everything, So my business partner had experience as a photographer and videographer. He's very much a tech guy. And so he said, okay, people are going to need the churches, the pastors, they're going to need to record their messages. Conferences are going to have to transition to being virtual. Music, like people are going to have to do virtual concerts and whatnot. So that's what we did. And we had an artist approach us and say, hey, I wanted to do a rooftop virtual concert, at my apartment complex. And we were like, well, how are you going to pull that off? And he had no idea. And we said, well, why don't you do it here? So that one room that we built out, we kind of cleared space and set up the band and the background singers and produced a virtual concert. Streamed it. It was beautiful. That group of people ended up being like the first group of artists that we signed. And we signed them after we contracted them to sing on a record. So my partner and I have a group called The Collective, and it's essentially a platform that we created for artists and singers from different genres to come together and share their faith. So, like, as an individual artist, I operate in the urban pop space, but I love Christian music. I love gospel music. I've sung it all my life. I still enjoy writing it and producing it. And I didn't want to give that up. Why should I?
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah. I mean, and I have, it's really strange in today's time because I'm seeing a lot of Christian artists
Mhm.
who deep down in their heart they want to cross genres.
Yeah.
And in the in the old days, if you did that, you crucified your career.
Yes.
Now, no, nobody really cares. But I like the fact that if it's deep down inside you, that if you are a Christian artist, but you want to sing R&B or you want to sing pop,
Mhm.
go for it. You're not leaving Jesus behind. You just want to try something new. And it's not that big a deal. And the way I look at it, more power to them. So I love it when you tell that story.
Yeah. So I just embraced that, and we created The Collective. And we invited those singers to participate on that album. So they're all featured on that album. And it was our first like full album release for the label. It's a record that I still very much enjoy, and the visual was shot here in our building, and it's beautiful. But it's called Sustainer. That's the name of the album. The single was the title track. And we had a great time doing that. And like I said, we signed those artists to our label. So we've got 5 gospel artists, and then 2 of us who aren't.
Well, see, I've watched the video of The Collective, and ladies and gentlemen, it's on YouTube. And not only was it beautifully shot, the music is absolutely fantastic.
Thank
I mean,
you.
high production value, excellent quality. So you did a stunning job with
Yeah.
that. So, but you also released your first solo album, the
Mhm.
EP IRL, in 2021. How would you describe the process in making that one?
Whew. Okay, so I tell people I I took this little road to go from we're going to build this studio to Dom, which is how I refer to myself in that space. Um, and so initially there was Tatiana Barnett, one of our artists. We released a single on her, and that was my first executive producer credit. Like, this is my first step into this space, executive producer Dominique, yay. Then holidays came around, and I released a single, O Ven. So, O Come Emmanuel, but I did it bilingual. So it's half Spanish and half English. And so that was my first solo release as a singer. And I was like, okay, I dipped my toe in, I did something that is just me. However, it's still a cover, and a song that's very familiar, and it's a special because it's holidays. Um, then we released The Collective Sustainer, and that was another step because executive producer, featured singer, and songwriter. So I was like, okay, I added one thing each time. Then the next release was IRL. So that was executive producer, singer, songwriter, artist, Dom. So this was a completely different space. And that album came from a very personal, vulnerable position because it was like telling a story of a relationship journey. So from being in a relationship that wasn't great to the next song being about how sometimes you might feel like you're going crazy and like all the things you would entertain in your mind that you would want to do to the person who's hurting you. And then the next song is kind of like a I'm better without you kind of situation. Like, you know what? I'm glad you're gone. I'm better without you. And then, and then the third song, the fourth song was like a I'm out here and I'm single, but I don't know if you want to be involved with me because I'm not in this space where I'm going to be kind. so,
Gotcha.
so
Yeah, you have your guard up and
yes,
you've learned from experience. So in other
yes.
words,
So
I
it's just like,
know I can see that you're coming, but don't be messing with me.
no, like, I don't think you want these problems. Like, there's a lot going on over here. So just tread lightly.
There
There's,
you go.
and then the last song is more like, okay, I'm entertaining someone and I'm considering what love, can feel like and look like. I'm considering trusting someone and, you're saying and doing all the right things, but you just got to get to know me essentially. So,
Now, I understand that your background now is very heavily into veganism. How did all that happen?
yeah. So, I've been vegan for 5 years. And after about the first year, I started buying things in bulk, just because even though we live in Houston, Houston is like one of the largest cities in the country. 4 or 5 years ago, there wasn't nearly as much as far as products that were accessible, that were replacements for meat. And, people say, oh, why won't you just eat the fruits and the vegetables and the grains and all of these things? Why do you have to replace the meat? And I ate all those things. I still eat all those things, but I didn't go vegan because I didn't like the way meat tasted. I went vegan because I did not like where it came from and what it would do to my body and what the whole industry does to the planet. Like I didn't like any of those things. So for people to transition more easily or even just to enjoy new things, I wanted to explore what existed, like what products were out there. Why not? I'm a foodie. And as
So
far
is
as
that why you created the vegan grocery store?
yes, exactly. So I started ordering things in bulk and like splitting the cost with friends online. And then I was like, well, I'll just make a little online store and they would come pick up from my office. And then eventually I said, well, maybe I just need a storefront, so I did a little grand opening and it was first like 400 or 500 square feet, little tiny space, and then it grew to like 800 square feet. Now I'm in the process of doing site visits and finding like a truly commercial retail space because it wasn't in a retail space, so we can grow. So
So in a way, you kind of started it off like a co-op and
yes.
then created the store, which I think is an excellent idea because at least with a co-op, you can test
Mhm.
your customer base. You can find out if there is a customer base. You can find out if it starts to grow, and then as you've seen, you can end up doing a full blown storefront.
Yep, exactly. And people are still like asking about it and looking for it. And I'm like, I promise I'm coming, guys. I didn't forget about you. I'm just, I want it to be amazing, So
Well, do you have any advice for anyone thinking about becoming a vegan?
sure. So a couple of things. One, when people ask me what should my first step be? Like if I'm entertaining the idea of veganism and I want to transition slowly, first step I tell people is to get rid of dairy. And it may sound easy because a lot of people say, well, I don't even drink regular milk anymore. And that's great, but that's just one thing. So cheese is very difficult for people, and it actually does scientifically have an addictive like component to it, so it makes sense that it would be difficult for people to give up. It takes 3 to 4 weeks for dairy to leave your system from the last time you ingested it. So
Wow, I did not know that.
yes. So you really have to take a break for at least a month, and your taste buds begin to change. And then you start trying new products. And it's not really about the comparison. It's about, do I enjoy this new thing? I've gotten past comparisons a long time ago. Like I'm not trying to replace this one specific item with the like exact one for one. It's really, does this taste good? Whatever this is I'm being presented with, does it taste good? Great, I'll eat it. I don't even care what it's trying to
But
replace.
isn't that what a lot of people do? It's almost like a human instinct, or we've been trained by the food company. So if you're wanting to make a change, so let's say
Mhm.
you just full blown horrible American diet, and then you're like, let me try going vegetarian, and then maybe you succeed at being a vegetarian, then you're like, let me move over to being a full blown vegan. I
Mhm.
think with that transition, the comparison stops. But
Yeah.
people who go from being uh, carnivorous
Yes.
to vegan, there's going to be
Mhm.
a full blown comparison. Like, okay, what plant food tastes like a steak? So
Yes.
then, to me, I think the rate of failure is going to be really, really high.
Yes. And that's one reason why I tell people start with dairy because the cheese is the hardest. It honestly is. And then when you start looking at all the foods that they sell in the grocery store, that you would think would be vegan, they have some sort of milk derivative, like chips. Almost every jalapeno chip that is made has milk in it.
Really?
Yes. So there's literally like two brands that don't use milk with their jalapeno chips, but they do it to cut the pepper. I mean, it's
I never thought of that. So that's how they, instead of having the pepper so hot with the
yeah,
chip, they use the dairy to cut the heat down a bit.
yes. So, it's difficult sometimes when you find there's a lot of memes that float around the internet, and it's like a face like when people are reading a label of something that should be vegan otherwise. And I go to the allergens list first because that's the easiest way to spot milk because it has to be listed there. So does eggs and like wheat and soy. Those are like top 8. I think allergens have to be listed. Peanuts, stuff like that.
Okay, let me ask you this. Being vegan,
Yes.
I am, for one, completely anti soy for multiple reasons.
Okay.
Are you anti soy when it comes to being vegan?
No, I'm not anti soy.
Okay. Now, I don't, now I know the health benefits of fermented soy, but I am absolutely against soy products that are not fermented because then there's elements of causing hypothyroidism and other issues where the fermentation process actually improves overall health.
Yeah, I think when people talk about that, I talk about moderation. And so a lot of those studies are based on amounts that are way more than what someone would actually ingest in a day.
Yeah.
But I get it. Like over time, if you have an increased level of intake of soy or a lot of different things, elements, not just soy, then there will be some kind of effect on your health. So, moderation is essentially what I tell people. And that's the other thing that people don't realize is in a lot of their food. And it's not whole soy, but fillers and just
Yeah, because there was a study, I think it's been at least 10 years, if not longer.
mhm,
And a lot of people misread the study. So they think, okay, this Japanese study, they're showing that the Japanese eat a lot of fruits and vegetables
mhm,
and they have soy in their diet. But
yeah,
they forget to read that the amount of soy per day is probably less than 2 grams.
yeah,
Then when they compared it to a U.S.
diet.
Similar type diet, they said, okay, the fruits and vegetables are there, but wow, their soy content is 10 times higher, and that's where some of the health issues
Yeah.
started to show up. So
Mhm.
yeah,
And a
like you
lot
said,
of that,
moderation in small amounts is okay, but not
yeah.
overindulging, like people drinking glasses of soy milk. That is an absolute no-no.
But a lot of that soy that's in like that they're accounting for in an American diet is in processed food. So if
That
you're on a whole food plant-based diet, or if even mostly like maybe 80/20 or something like that, then you won't even deal with that problem unless you genetically have a sensitivity like an allergy or something like that. Then that's a completely different story.
yeah.
But just the average person, a lot of it comes from the processed foods that people buy in the freezer section or the box stuff that's on the shelf and all that kind of, like, they just don't pay attention to the ingredients.
Now, let me ask you this, Dominique, because I know a lot of people, I know there are famous people who are vegan.
Yeah.
And I've talked to a lot of them, and they love the lifestyle. They've been doing it for so long. I mean, it's literally not a diet. It is a
Right.
lifestyle. And
Absolutely.
they live it to the point to where it doesn't, they just do it. They don't have to think about it.
Hmm.
It's kind of like people who go on a diet. They're constantly thinking about it. I'm on a diet. But a lifestyle just becomes to the point to where it's like driving. We can drive down the
Hmm.
street. We don't even think about turning the steering wheel or hitting the gas. But we just do it. We're there and we go on about our business. And
Yep.
veganism can be that way if you practice it and learn it. And eventually, you're not tempted by a bag of Oreos or Doritos and things of that sort. But for you, yeah, yeah.
Oreos actually are vegan, so Oreos don't count.
Even the cream inside, there's no dairy.
There's no dairy. Oreos are actually vegan.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Well, ladies and
And
gentlemen, you just found your new cheat
right.
food.
And believe it or not, salsa verde Doritos are vegan too.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Now I won't feel guilty at all. Now, for you though, is it
Yes.
hard to balance being super fashionable? I have seen your photos, and ladies and gentlemen, we're going to put those up so you can see Dominique in what I call, I mean, the most, these, you, like I said before we had the interview, the camera loves you. And, but is it hard to balance being super fashionable and being vegan at the same time?
It's challenging.
Really?
Sometimes it's challenging in the sense that I have to do more research. I have to put more thought, which is the same thing with your food. Like my whole entire life is built around the research that I do and the thought that I put into my purchases. So if you become accustomed to putting thought into the things that you purchase, then it begins to be second nature, like you said. But it's my whole life. So, it's not just my food, it is my clothes and my shoes and my car and the activities, the furniture in my office and my home. It's everything. Everything. So I spend a lot of time curating looks from different designers, because even though a brand may not be vegan or wholly eco-conscious or sustainable or any of those things that we would love to see, I still enjoy a Fendi dress. So I find the ones that are made from a material that does not involve animals. So
So is it hard not to wear leather?
no,
Really?
it's not hard at all for me. And this is a personal conviction. And so I tell people all the time, I'm not walking around trying to convince people to go vegan because I feel like it is a very personal
Yeah.
conviction. The other advice that I give people about veganism is to stay connected to your why, because if you can stay connected to your why, then it keeps you centered. And for me, even though when I'm coaching other people on transitioning to what I call a compassion mindset, there are ways to be vegan and eco-conscious and sustainable and still wear leather or use leather. And it's basically just, keeping the things that you already have until they're completely worn out, or buying resale or pre-owned, or so you're not creating new demand. And that's how I justify, like in a luxury car where a non-leather option is not available. Well, if it's pre-owned, I'm not creating new demand. So there.
Oh, I love that fact. And I think pre-owned is fantastic
Yeah,
investment. We're not swallowing the depreciation that somebody else did.
exactly. So
Yeah.
you know, I tell people, well, if you want that leather bag, go on ThreadUp or something like that and buy a Chanel purse, buy a Louis Vuitton purse. If that's what you want, that's cool. But for me personally, because I actually have a philosophical issue with the idea of dead animals on my person,
Yeah.
I can't wear leather. Like it's not okay for
Well,
me.
yeah, and I had interviewed Campbell Ritchie, who is a top celebrity makeup artist, and we got into the conversation because, like Stella McCartney, her fashion and the things Campbell told me were like, cactus leather and mushroom leather. There are other types of leathers out there that if you are really into sustainable fashion, you do live the vegan lifestyle, and that goes down to the very clothes you wear. There are options out there. Like you said, you have to look for it, you have to read the label. So, yeah, if you want Ralph Lauren or Fendi, you should be able to find it. You just got to do a little bit more homework than the average person.
Like I mean, I know you can't see them, but the sneakers that I'm wearing today are Gucci. The Gucci came out with a leather alternative called Demetra, and it's made from wood pulp. And so they released two different sneakers in this material, and I bought both of them. So
Well, what can all of your fans of your work and music expect from you this year?
more music, and definitely more fashion. I'm working on my own luxury vegan line. So hopefully, we're looking to launch in the fall. So be on the lookout for that. And, just more of me in the marketplace, doing all the wonderful things and being friends with the camera.
There you go. Well, what about are there any other projects coming out of the Vgn Bae Music Group that we should be
Oh,
looking out for?
absolutely. Especially if your preference is, the gospel Christian space. So we've had so far 4 releases this year, and we have one or two more slated. So we had the Collective released a new album on Good Friday. And so y'all have to go look up the Collective. There are 3 albums, Sustainer, and then there's a holiday album, which of course, when the holidays come back around, you go right back to that. And then we have our latest release. Then we have called Revival. That's the name of that album. It's amazing. In May, we released Anthony Hall, who is my business partner. He did his first full length album called Roosevelt, and it is getting added to radio every day. It's charting. His single Altar Call is fun. If you like funk, R&B, like James Brown feel, or even a little like Prince-ish type vibe, all of that is on that album. It's
Well,
amazing.
I've got Anthony Hall coming next week, so I look forward to talking to him.
Exactly. So there's that. Nikita Fox, who's been around in the gospel community for a long time. She's one of the Kurt Carr singers. She released an EP. And so that's a project on our label. Michael Dixon released a full project called How Are You Healing? And it's focusing on mental health. It's a really transformative project. Tatiana
Well,
Barnett has an album coming out called Audacity, and Anthony, I think, is working on a holiday record.
so where can all of my viewers, all of my listeners find out more about you and find out more about, well, all of the artists you just mentioned and all of their projects? Is there a single place they can go to?
uh, Instagram, um, Vgn Bae Music Group, both Instagram and Facebook. We have both pages, so whichever your preference is for socials, Vgn Bae, VGN BAE Music Group. follow us on either or both of those platforms, and you'll always be in the know about the releases that we have coming up and what we have in rotation. You can follow me on Instagram, VgnBae Dom, so VgnBae Dom, and on Facebook, Dominique Side.
Hey, wow. Dominique, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Can't wait to have you back. Can't wait to talk to Anthony Hall next week. And ladies and gentlemen, look, I love gospel music. I love Christian contemporary. There are so many genres there alone, but you know, a lot of these artists, they like to step out a bit. They want to do things that are different. And you know what the cool thing about that is? The whole world is out there for us to, well, let our light shine. And we just can't be, well, singing to the choir all the time. We got to let that light get outside those walls. And Dominique Side is doing that. And Dominique, I have got to just, give you kudos and chops here, because I am very impressed with your business sense. So all of you musicians who watch me and listen to me, you can learn from this young lady, because she's doing it right. And just keep on doing what you're doing. Follow your dreams. And I know one thing, you're not slowing down. So, who knows, one day it may be Dominique Side that buys Warner Music or Sony. We never know. It may actually happen. All right. Well, thank you, Dominique, for being on the program. And ladies and gentlemen, stick around, because guess what? There'll be more right after these messages.
You haven't seen anything like Accu 2020. Primrose Leaf brings you the ultimate optimal eye support formula, containing more than 12 natural ingredients specifically designed and formulated to improve and maintain the health of your eyes. Accu 2020 may help with the prevention of cataracts and macular degeneration, providing antioxidants specific for your eyes, and proper ocular pressure for those with glaucoma. Don't let the windows to your world be less than their best. Get Accu 2020 today and start to see things in a whole new way. 844-376-0007 or primroseleaf.com.